parliamentary session. Madam Deputy Speaker, the first thing you've got to try and not do when you consider this bill is to try not to laugh. Not to laugh out loud at the sheer ridiculousness of considering in 2024 where the places should be reserved in our legislature for a curious subset of a particular class of person based on birthright. To stifle the guffaws that accompanies the fact that a modern, complex, industrial, advanced democracy like the United Kingdom can still have barons, dukes, earls and various aristocrats deciding the laws of the land because they are their father's son. And they were able to secure this right back in the medieval times because one of their great-great-grandfathers perhaps won a decisive battle in the Middle Ages. This is parliamentary participation defined by the Game of Thrones principle, where the great houses of Oldie England or Oldie Britannia knocked 7 shades of whatever out of each other for the right to run this country by breeding. I suppose in some sort of way they're our own Baratheons and Targaryens, only without the fun, without the dragons and the box office appeal. But it's now time to break the wheel. For them down the corridor there, winter must be coming. There is no other legislature in the world that even comes close to having people in the legislature for birthright, save perhaps the upper Senate in Lesotho, where there is still a place, I believe, reserved for the tribal chiefs. This is a type of company that we keep. But looking at this bill, my other main and initial thought is this it? Is this all we've got? Now we've heard all this thing about other things to come. They're going to be patient. Other bills will come forward. We've been hearing that from the Labour Party for 100 years. For over 100 years, they've promised to abolish the House of Lords. But there it sits, bigger and more bizarre than ever, awaiting the arrival of the new Labour Lords. Where is the Brownian vision of a Senate of the regions and the nations? Where is the almost federalism that we in Scotland were promised during the independence referendum? It's certainly not in this bill, Madam Deputy Speaker. This meagre rubbish hasn't even got the credibility to call itself a reform. We'll probably wait about the same amount of time that these barons and earls won those decisive battles for meaningful reform to come from the Labour Party. It's not abolition of the House of Lords that we're getting from the Labour Party in this Parliament. It's the long grass, as a consultation is now about to be embarked upon as they get round to the business of prevaricating once again. I don't think anybody in this country really believes that the Labour Party are in the remotest bit sincere about abolishing the House of Lords. I don't think most people actually believe, certainly what the contributions we've heard so far, that they're actually in favour of real reform of the House of Lords. And even the watering down has been watered down, as the proposal to have a mandatory time limit, age limit in the House of Lords of 80-year-olds has been neglected, only because they found they were about to ennoble a couple of their own peers, like we were just about to approach 80-year-olds. And they've only subsequently found out that they're disproportionately hit by all this, because their cohort in the House of Lords is actually older than the Conservative peers. It's no wonder that very few people actually take them serious. What we have down there is an embarrassment and an unreformable laughingstock, a plaything of Prime Ministers and the personification of a dying establishment that represents another age. With all its ridiculous cat-duffing deference, it represents almost the exact range of values that my country is all about. And that is why I am so proud that my party will never put anybody in that red leather upholstered, gold-plated Narnia. But where we could laugh at their hereditaries, The honourable gentleman in the Conservative Party are quite right to point to the ridiculousness of 26 places reserved for Church of England bishops. We are the only legislature in the world that has places reserved for clerics other than the Islamic Republic of Iran. And where we could take some sort of comfort that the Archbishop of Canterbury isn't going to embark in some sort of religious jihad, what strange company to keep. If there was an inter-parliamentary union of serving clerics, it would be exclusively composed of Church of England bishops and ayatollahs. But it's not even the hereditaries or the Church of England bishop that concerns me. The group that concerns me most about the House of Lords is the appointees. The donors, the cronies and the placemen who end up with a role in running our country and making the laws of this land because of prime ministerial patronage. The people who have a place in our democracy, whose only qualification seems to be an ability to give substantial and significant amounts of money to one of the three major political establishment parties in this House. We have evolved a legislature that is now at least partly designed by one person, a Prime Minister who decides who has the opportunity to take a role in running this country by appointment based on lists drawn up to him by him and other British party leaders. No other party leader or head of state has this particular power anywhere in the world. It's a prerogative that would make a tin pot dictator in a banana republic blush, but yet we sit here on these benches and lecture the developing world about good politics and democracy. The temptation, of course, is to stuff it all full of your friends in the political useful. A place to reward the servile, to thank the time servers and to compensate the downgraded, don't they? This week we're obviously considering one of these examples, with all the talk of Sue Gray ending up with a place in the Lords as some sort of compensation for her sacking. I suppose when she goes down there, she'll get an ermine coat to accompany the envoy's ostrich feather when she goes and visits her most northern territory in Scotland as the British envoy. And already our loyal subjects, Madam Deputy Speaker, are practising their haka to welcome our new envoy as she makes that journey north. But to see how bad things could get, we only need to remember Boris Johnson's list, full of friends, donors and former staff. A list that could not be more gratuitous. Now, notionally, there's a House Appointments Commission, an utterly toothless body that Boris Johnson just simply ignored, and it has done nothing to stop the accumulation of cronies and donors. 68 out of 284 nominations from political parties between 2013 and 2023 were political donors, handing over 58 million to the political parties. 12 of those appointments gave over £1 million. Now, that was the price during Cash for Honours in the early 90s. You would think inflation would be at least factored in when it came to getting your place in the House of Lords, but not a bit of it. The going rate is still £1 million. This Cash for Honours, of course, led to one of the most dramatic police investigations in the 2005-2010 Parliament, where a sitting Prime Minister was questioned by the police under caution and some of his staff were actually arrested. You would think that after all of that, the establishment parties would just be a little bit more circumspect about this, but not a bit of it. The cash keeps coming in and the peerages keep on getting rolled out. And even as recently as 2021, I asked the Metropolitan Police to investigate the Conservative Party when we found that 22 of the Conservatives' biggest financial contributors have been made members of the House of Lords in the past 15 years. Madam Deputy Speaker, this government has no plans whatsoever to do anything about the appointees in the House of Lords, save to make more of them. And one of the reasons, and the Conservatives are possibly right in this, one of the reasons that we're getting this bill so early in this Parliament is to clear the place out so that the Labour Party could put in more of its donors, cronies and placemen. That's why they're doing this so early, to clear it out, to make sure there's spaces available and the place doesn't look as big as this. The House of Lords is the most absurd, ridiculous legislature anywhere in the world, famously second only in size to the People's Congress of China. Bloated, ermine-coated, never been voted. It is the antithesis of everything that we know about democracy. Increasingly embarrassing, probably corrupt, certainly rife for all sorts of abuse. It's an institution whose time has surely come to pass. Now, we put forward a reasoned amendment to oppose this bill because we were going to hold the Labour Party to its historic commitment to abolish the House of Lords. Unfortunately, it wasn't selected. But there will be opportunities, as this bill goes through this House, to come back to this again. And all I would say to the government, yes, bring forward your step-by-step incremental changes, but what the general population, the public now want to see is some meaningful action on the House of Lords. There was a YouGov poll out yesterday that showed the vast majority of the British people no longer want the House of Lords. They specifically and defiantly want it reformed. It's no good enough just continuing to pass the buck for another 100 years. Something has to be done. Pick up Gordon Brown's report, for goodness sake. Have a look at what he says. Try to enact some sort of meaningful reform. And who knows, it might even make them popular again. This seems to be what the public want. This could be something that they could do that the public would actually genuinely support. We've waited centuries from action from the Labour Party, and we've got next to absolute nothing. Now is the time for action. No more prevarication. Get real action and get dealing with that place down the corridor.
Phil Brickell.